Today we're taking a look at these NBA matches, which are happening on Wednesday, October 19, 2022, and giving you match breakdowns, betting tips and predictions in general on these games. Welcome back to High Stakes, let's get straight into it. Also, don't forget to subscribe and push that notification bell to get notified as soon as we release these sport prediction videos. And if you would like more betting tips and predictions, then check out our Patreon in the link down below. Our new Patreon is a way for us to help you improve your chances of making more money. Multiple plans are available for each and every one of you. By becoming a member of the High Stakes Patreon, you will have access to our best team picks, total picks, parlay picks and much more. Stop wasting hours of your time searching for bad betting predictions that ends up costing you a lot of time and money. Join the High Stakes Patreon now and get the best betting picks. Houston Rockets vs Atlanta Hawks. Houston will be a rebuilding team again. This year there's really no way to get around that. The Rockets have one of the youngest rosters in the NBA and are coming off the worst season of any team in the league. They went on a 15-game losing streak early last season and were never able to find a winning rhythm. Houston is now 2 years separated from the James Harden era, so it has to fully embrace the young core that it has. The Rockets added to their youth by selecting Jabari Smith with the number 3 pick in the 2022 NBA draft and Tari Eason at number 17. They traded center Christian Wood to Dallas for several expiring contracts as well. Houston closed the 2021-22 season with a 130-114 loss to Atlanta as a 12-point underdog. This is an interesting spread, as bettors are essentially tasked with figuring out how many points better the Rockets got during the offseason. I am willing to say they improved by more than 2 points, respectively, against Atlanta. The Rockets added some high-level talent in the draft, and their core from last year now has another full offseason under their belt. Atlanta got a little better by adding Murray, but the Capella injury situation makes me wary of backing the Hawks during the first week of the season. Our team pick is Rockets plus 10 points. The Rockets needed to rebuild after trading Harden to Brooklyn, and the team has tanked the last several seasons to ensure a high draft position. Houston has drafted a lot of young talent over the last several years, and some of the players like Jalen Green looked ready for breakout seasons this year. Green came on late last year, scoring 30 points or more in 3 of his final 4 games last season, and the number 2 pick in 2021 looked very strong in the preseason of this year as well. The Rockets have a bad roster, and this team isn't going to make the playoffs, but Houston should be better than last year. The only 2 veterans on the roster are Eric Gordon and Derek Favors. Houston was the worst defense in the league last year, and the team didn't make any significant changes to their very young roster. Derek Favors is too small to guard on the perimeter, as the Jazz learned, and Houston will likely struggle defensively again this season. Both teams prefer to play fast since their best players are in the backcourt, and Houston's younger players such as Jalen Green should be better this year. Atlanta was a good offensive team last year despite their disappointing season, and the Hawks should again be able to score with a roster featuring Trae Young, John Collins, and new addition Dejounte Murray. Our total pick is over 233.5 points. Cleveland Cavaliers vs Toronto Raptors. On offense, the Cavaliers scored 107.7 points per game and had an adjusted offensive rating of 111.1. This was the 20th highest adjusted rating in the NBA and the 25th most points scored per game. They had issues consistently putting the ball in the basket as they struggled to shoot from the floor. Cleveland had an effective field goal shooting percentage of 53.8%, which was the 14th highest in the league. They also had an effective 3-point shooting percentage of 53.2%. This was the 15th highest in the league, as they could get hot from behind the arc at different times last season. Last year, Darius Garland was the leading scorer for the Cavs, as he averaged 21.7 points per game. They will now add Mitchell to this group, as they will be without Sexton. Mitchell averaged 25.9 points per game last season, and he will also be looking to help the Cavaliers on the offensive side of the floor. On defense, the Raptors surrendered 107.4 points per game, which was the 9th least in the NBA last season. They also had an adjusted defensive rating of 110.4, which was the 9th best in the league. They were one of the best defensive teams in the NBA as they continued to pressure their opponents. They also forced 8.9 steals per game, which was the 2nd most. they continued to harass their opponents, as these steals helped them score easy points on the offensive end of the court. The Raptors did struggle to defensively rebound, though. They only averaged 31.7 defensive boards per game, which was the least in the league. They have to secure the ball after a missed shot if they want to avoid giving their opponent second-chance scoring opportunities. I will be picking Cleveland and taking the points, +3, in this game, as I see their off-season additions making a huge difference on the offensive side of the floor. I see Garland and Mitchell playing great together, as this will be one of the best backcourts in the league this season. Cleveland was also the better overall shooting team last season, as they had the 15th highest effective three-point shooting percentage and the 14th highest effective field goal percentage. They will continue to make it rain all over the floor, as I didn't think the Raptors did enough this past offseason to improve the team. They also shot poorly from the field last season, as the Cavs' defense will make it very difficult for them to score enough points to win this game. Cleveland allowed the 5th least amount of points last season, and they also had the 5th best adjusted defensive rating, as they will make it difficult for Siakam and VanVleet to score. This Cavaliers team is much deeper this season, and I see them being much better on the offensive end of the floor. Their great defense will also continue, as I see them making it very difficult for the Raptors in this game. Cleveland is the better overall team, and Mitchell is going to help keep this game close on the road. Pick the Cleveland Cavaliers and take the points, +3. The Cleveland Cavaliers had one of the better off-seasons as they were able to acquire three-time All-Star Donovan Mitchell by trading away forward Lauri Markkanen, rookie Ochai Agbaji, guard Colin Sexton, 3 unprotected first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. They now have an extremely impressive starting 5 of Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Caris LeVert, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen, and should be seen as a top team in the Eastern Conference as a whole. They have played together a bit in the preseason, and head coach J.B. Bickerstaff talked to the media about the way they all have transitioned to playing with one another. These teams were known last season for their defensive outputs, but the addition of Donovan Mitchell adds a true scoring threat that can add some points here. Cleveland shot 46.9% from the floor last season, while Toronto finished the year shooting 44.5% from the field. According to Dunks and Threes, the Cavs had a 111.1 adjusted offensive rating, while the Raptors finished with a 112.6 adjusted offensive rating. With the emotions of the first game of the regular season, there is a huge burst of offense being expected as the juices are flowing. The over has hit in 15 of the last 22 games between the Cavaliers and the Raptors, so go with the over as the better play for this particular matchup. Our total pick is over 214 points. New Orleans Pelicans vs Brooklyn Nets. Last season, the Pelicans were 21st in the league in scoring offense, as they averaged 109.3 points per game on the season. New Orleans was 11th in rebounding by collecting 45.2 boards a night, while the team ranked tied for 12th in assists by dishing out 25 dimes a night. The Pelicans were 13th in the league in scoring defense, as they allowed 110.3 points per game so far this year. Brandon Ingram put up a team-high 22.7 points plus 5.8 boards per contest last season. Devonte Graham added 11.9 points plus 4.2 assists a night. Jonas Valanciunas chipped in 17.8 points plus 11.4 rebounds per game, while CJ McCollum, 22.1 points, 5.1 assists, also averaged in double figures. Trey Murphy 3, Jackson Hayes, Garrett Temple, Kira Lewis Jr., Herbert Jones, Larry Nance Jr. and Jose Alvarado are key pieces in the Pelicans' rotation. New Orleans was tied for 22nd in field goal percentage by shooting 45.7% from the field as a team last season. The Pelicans were tied for 28th in the league in threes per game, as they knocked down 10.6 triples per contest and stood 27th in three-point shooting by hitting 33.2% from beyond the arc. The Nets finished last season 9th in the league in scoring offense, as they averaged 112.9 points per game on the year. Brooklyn was 13th in the league in rebounding with 44.4 boards per contest and 10th in assists by dishing out 25.3 dimes a night. The Nets were tied for 18th in the league in scoring defense by allowing 112.1 points per contest. Kevin Durant led the team with 29.9 points plus 7.4 rebounds and 6.4 assists per game. Patty Mills kicked in 11.4 points per contest, while Kyrie Irving, 27.4 points, 5.8 assists, and Joe Harris, 11.3 points, each are solid scoring options as well. The Nets look to get production from Nick Claxton, Markieff Morris, Royce O'Neal, TJ Warren, Seth Curry, 15 points, 3.6 assists, Cam Thomas, Ben Simmons and James Johnson. Brooklyn was fourth in the league in field goal percentage, as they shot 47.5% from the field as a team on the year. The Nets were tied for 23rd in the league in three-point field goals per game, as they drained 11.5 triples per game, while they stood 10th in three-point field goal percentage by hitting 36.1% from beyond the arc. The Nets are trying to shake off what was a disappointing campaign in 2021-22 and hope that having Irving available from the get-go will be a boost to their fortunes. After all, he played in just 29 games a season ago, as for most of the season, he was a part-time player due to the vaccine mandate for the private sector in New York City for most of last year. The Pelicans look to get a boost from getting Williamson back in the mix, along with a full season of McCollum leading the way in the backcourt. It might take a little time for the Nets to get their new rotation up to speed, as there are a fair amount of new faces. Without bombers like Curry and Harris in the mix here, it might be too much for the new-look Nets to handle at home. Take the Pelicans in this contest to start the season 1-0, our team pick is New Orleans Pelicans plus 3.5 points. The Pelicans will have a completely different roster this year, with the return of Zion Williamson after he missed last season with injuries. New Orleans made a surprise playoff push after acquiring CJ McCollum, and the Pelicans finished the season strong, losing the top-seeded Suns in 6 games after getting through the play-in tournament to earn a playoff berth. New Orleans is a very young team, and the Pelicans will need some of their young players to take the next step if this team wants to improve on last season. While the Pelicans have vets like Valanciunas, McCollum, Graham, and Ingram. Still, the team will need young players like Jones, Hayes, and Williamson to improve. Kyrie is in a contract year and he's looked very strong in the preseason. He and the Nets will want to start the season strong after last season's disappointment. The Pelicans were a solid defensive team last year, but their roster will look very different with Zion, and New Orleans will have to adjust on both sides of the ball to playing with Williamson. This should be an up-tempo game with a lot of scoring. Our total pick is 230.5 points.